Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you a different kind of review, and that is a review of the Anker Soundcore Sleep A20 earbuds that are just being publicly released today. Well, I was really excited when I saw the kind of pre-release Kickstarter information for the Anker Soundcore advertising the new Sleep A20 earbuds coming. Now, while I typically don't do audio reviews anymore, I was really interested in these particular earbuds because they seem tailor-made for me. Sometimes when my mind is racing, I find that listening to an audiobook as I'm trying to go to sleep helps my mind to relax just enough to where I can drift off. And so it does work for me, and it's obviously a much better solution than taking some kind of medication. However, there are some potential downfalls that I've run into in real-world use over the years. Maybe the audiobook plays too long, and thus it becomes a distraction and a liability rather than an asset. Or, you know, what I've run into many times in the past is I've been asleep and then I start to get a very, very knowing battery is low indication right in my ear that, of course, wakes me up, which defeats the purpose. Sometimes the earbud comes out and gets lost in the bedding, and I literally have, shaken down the bed many times trying to find an earbud that rolled out at some point in the night and, having to find it somewhere where I kicked it down towards the end of the bed. Or I can't roll onto my side because, that pressure from the earbud being my ear is uncomfortable. So these were earbuds that were kind of designed around all of those things, all soft touch materials, and so your ear doesn't get sore when you wear them. Sound masking to help deal with a snore in the bed, which I also have dealt with sometimes, and then also to give some smart volume to kind of adjust up and down depending on environmental noise, like snoring, for example. To avoid that low battery alert, they have extremely long battery life. In fact, in sleep mode, they are rated at 14 hours of runtime before they need to be recharged, which I think is enough to cover just about everybody I know in terms of their sleeping pattern. That's a few nights for me. You also have access to a wide variety of different and customizable white noise, nature sounds, things like that in the sleep mode to help you to relax, to mask out sound, all of those things. I also like the fact that they advertised a smart switch option that allows you to switch from an audio source initially to sleep mode once you fall asleep, like those nature sounds or white noise. And so not only to get you asleep, but to keep you asleep after that point. And then of course they even go to the degree to where they'll give you sleep analytics through the Anker Soundcore app that you can use as well. So I was intrigued by the general concept, and so I reached out to get access to a pair to test out during that. And apparently there's a lot of other people that were interested as well. I see that Soundcore has already had around 15,000 backers, giving them about $1.6 million on Kickstarter. So obviously there's a lot of interest out there. So here what I'm trying to explore today is how good are they actually? Are they something that you should put your money into if you're in a similar kind of situation as mine? So first of all, in the actual unboxing portion, I found that there was a lot in the box. It seems like the trend with a lot of products these days is there's less and less in the box. It used to be when you bought an audio device, there was lots of audio cables and things like that. That seems to be kind of a lost art at this point. So there is a whole wide variety of customizable things, not just the tips, but also some of these, what they call ear wings, that help them to not only to fit into your ear canal, but also then to stay locked in. And so just designed to fit into your ear and so that it holds it in place. And with the recognition that people's ear canals are different sizes, but also the kind of girth of their ear is different, these wings come in different sizes to help to make sure that you get a secure fit, however your actual ear configuration is. In touching everything, you can tell that these are designed to be slept on. Everything is really soft touch, no hard plastics here, and so they are very, very pleasing to the touch, and you can tell just even right out of the box that they're going to be better in that regard. They are so low profile that when they're in your ear, nothing sticks out at all. In fact, they're recessed a bit there. And so as I turn here, you can see how deeply they are. And many times if I'm wearing them, people don't even notice I have them in unless they happen to turn away to where they see them. In kind of a visual comparison, you can see that they are much, much smaller than the standard A20i earbuds from them, which are one of their inexpensive, but I find very high bang for the buck. Part of the reason why I was interested in the sleep Sleep A20s is that I already had several pair of their Soundcore earbuds that I actually really liked. And so it also gave me some more interest, but obviously much smaller. I found that as I began to dive into the Soundcore app, that there are deep levels of customization, and that's particularly true for the sleep mode. You've always had the ability with Anker Soundcore buds to be able to program kind of the function of, the tap functions, things like that. But in this case, because of that sleep aspect, there's just a deep level of customization that really comes down to with the actual different sounds for sleep that you can really customize to something that works for you. You can layer them in. You can even tweak the acoustics of them. So very interesting in that regard. Not only are the earbuds themselves have a very long battery life, but the charging case that comes with it is rated for giving you 80 hours of playback charge time. So, if you're talking about even 10 hours a night, that's 8 days. If you're talking about 8 hours, you're talking about 10 days before you have to worry about recharging that. And obviously in many people's case, their use might be lower than that. And so obviously you're going to be able to go a long time in between. So those are the kind of basic things you can get right off the specifications or by taking a look at some of the photos. But let me give you some of the different ways that I use them. I use them like traditional earbuds. I use them for music, for audiobooks, for video playback. I use them while sleeping, obviously. I use them while running, something I like to do to see how that they perform in that setting. I use them while mowing the grass, kind of the typical things that I would do with earbuds, but with the addition of sleeping in them as well. So here's some of my real-world observations. I found that the audio quality is good, but I wouldn't say that it is quite as good as the A20i, particularly when it comes to the low end. These have a tremendous amount of bass, which they're great bang for the buck earbuds. These also have very good sound, but I would say that the sound is more balanced and it doesn't have quite as much low end. I also noted that for maybe obvious reasons, the tap functionality it's a little bit different in the response. These are very responsive, and you have options of single, double, and triple taps for various functions you can program. In this case, there is no single tap function. So you do have a little bit less on tap in terms of tap function, but in this case, the least you can do is a double tap. And so I think that is to make sure that you don't have issues with maybe inadvertently bumping them in the night. But because they sit further in and they're not quite as responsive, I did find that the tap functionality was just a little bit less precise feeling than what it was with these. You get adjusted to it after a while. You have to be a little more firm, a little bit more intentional, but you do have to be more intentional to make sure that you get the tap input onto them. They are very soft touch, and I found that they were quite comfortable when sleeping. The very fact, obviously, that you don't have something protruding and putting pressure if you're sleeping on your side is very useful. And so I found that in the morning, my ear was less sore, though at the same time, it's not like wearing nothing either. And so I could, feel that I'd had something in the night, but it was much more comfortable than a typical earbud. I found that there was enough sound isolation. They basically have 4 levels of that sound isolation as a part of the design. Some of it electronic, some of it passive in the way that it fits in your ear. But I found that it worked well enough that, for example, I could ride my lawn tractor while listening to an audiobook successfully. And that's one of the tests that I like to see because it's one of the practical things that I like to do. I also found that the snore masking setting worked pretty well. It's not like you were completely unaware that someone was snoring beside you, because when you're sharing a bed with someone who snores, you discover when you're really blocking out the sound, part of that you actually feel. It's a little bit of a rumble, a vibration that takes place. And so it was more like a distant rumble, but it was definitely much easier to tune it out and to continue sleeping. The battery life is really impressive in all modes that I tested. Even just, standard use, listening to music or, audiobooks, podcasts throughout the day. I could just go on and on and on, and it seemed like the battery never quit. On one of the nights where I was very intentional about timing it, I started off listening to an audiobook. It did the smart switch over to the sleep mode. When I woke up in the morning, about 8 hours later, from the time that I started listening to something to where I woke up again, it showed that there was still more than 50% of battery life left. So obviously that's very impressive. While running, one of the things I like to test for is kind of that thudding that you have as you have footfalls, and sometimes, particularly if you're listening to something like an audiobook, you will really kind of it's annoying to hear that. And so I found that starting off, it was very minimal as far as that. As I got further into the run, I could hear it a little bit more. So while it still felt very secure in my ear, obviously it loosened up just enough over distance, that kind of just pounding up and down, to where it wasn't seated quite as much. And then I got a little bit more movement, a little more of that thudding effect, and I did need to kind of reseat them as I ran. And so not flawless, but I would say better than typical earbuds for running. Now, on a normal occasion, because they fit in so securely and so low profile, they never feel like they're going to fall out. Now, obviously, your mileage may vary. You're going to need to find the right fit. But for myself, I found that they were such a great fit that I never even felt that they became insecure. As I said, even while running, I think that they did loosen a little bit, but I couldn't really feel it. They still felt like they were tightly seated. An interesting thing for the sleep mode is that you can also have the option through the app of having an alarm go right to the earbud. And so rather than, disturbing the person that might be sharing the room with you, you can have that alarm go directly to there. And obviously that is going to be another useful aspect. One final thing that's interesting that I haven't really encountered with some of my other earbuds is that these are capable of emitting a beeping sound if you're looking for them. They're obviously very small, and so if you drop them and if they're light colored, and so if you drop them on a light colored surface and you weren't able to see them, they will emit a beeping sound, a kind of a fine device mode, and it's not super loud, but it is loud enough to hear it and to help you to find them. So overall, I would say that I was happy with the overall function of them. Probably the most annoying thing I would say is the more difficult in tap, because sometimes if I'm working in the middle of doing things and I tap, I don't want to have to repeatedly do that. Maybe something's happening where I need to talk to a person and I need to pause things quickly. And so I don't love that aspect of it, but that's probably my chief complaint. So finally, let's talk about price. They were priced for as little as $90 in the Kickstarter for the early bird buyers. The claimed full MSRP is $150 US. We'll see if they actually sell them at that price point. Doing a little bit of research, I found that I wasn't aware, but they did have a previous generation, the Sleep A10 mode, our models, and those are currently priced between $100 and $120 on Amazon. I would probably think that after a little bit of time, that's probably where they will settle out, somewhere similar to that. It's a very interesting concept that I find works well for me because as I said, I think I'm kind of the perfect person that they're looking for. They're kind of case study for that. I would only buy these if you are interested in the sleep function. It's kind of wasting money otherwise because there are cheaper alternatives even from Soundcore themselves that work just fine for general earbud type work. But I would say that if you're interested in the sleep function and that is something that could be useful to you, these are a pretty worthy consideration because, you might have a little sound machine or something like that. But when you're traveling, this is a whole lot easier to bring along than some other device. And obviously, they can do so many other things at the same time. If you want more information, you can look in the description down below where you can find linkage to the Soundcore site and also some buying links if you're interested in purchasing them for yourself. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day and let the light in.